The aim with this video is to explain to you our process in making a plaster block so I can dry all my reclaimed clay. I hadn't done it before, but I had used a plaster block at the pottery where I learnt, and I'd used it as a wedging block as well to dry the clay out a little bit. So first of all, we've made a wooden structure, but we found that it was a little bit unsquare, so we're adding some blocks onto that to make sure there's pressure down. The reason I've used glass in that on the bottom is actually because I'd watched Simon Leach do one with glass, and it had shown that it had released very well and very quickly, and that of course could become the top and it would be flat. So I contacted the guys at Corby Kilns in the UK to find out what plaster to use, and it is actually a pottery plaster, one that's also used for moulds. The one I'm using here is by a company called Formula, St. Gabion. And then what I did is I had a look and found a video, and actually they were using the same pottery plaster, and I followed their formula, but it is in a UK format, and I had to convert it. Now what I did do though is I have got that written up at the end of this video and another explanation of it. So just to briefly recap here, we've got a unit that I want is 14 inches by 20 inches by 2.5 inches deep. You times them all together and you get 700 cubic inches. You then use the 700 and divide it by 80. That gave me 8.75 quarts of water. I then had to, yes, I converted the quarts into literage, so I actually had 8.28 litres of water. I then go back and use the 8.75 and times it by 3 to give me pounds of plaster. So I use 26.25 pounds of plaster. So to recap, here I've got 26.25 pounds of plaster to 8.28 litres of water. And as you can see, I've got this very creamy consistency. So the next part then is to pour it in. We've just put it on a bit of plastic, and we're pouring it in quite gently, but it's not coming out the sides, it's not leaking out of the sides, so we can just get on with it really. The next thing we have and are going to do, and you'll see that in the video, is that we have a sheet of wire mesh that we want to put in the middle of the unit to try and make sure that it has some added strength. This has been suggested by everyone that we've watched, so that is what we are going to add in a minute.
No, I'm worried I haven't got enough.
Oh no, I'll have enough. I think that's enough to put this in, do you?
I think so.
That's enough to put this in
Put
now.
your finger in it and have a feel before you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah? Which way are you going to go?
You hold the two. You hold the frame.
I am not going to take them both off.
No, you hold the frame. I'll lift
it
them
won't.
off.
No, it won't make it.
Yeah.
Okay. It will still twist. So just take one off. Yeah. So I'm only going to take this one off.
Take that one off, then I can get in.
Brilliant. Okay.
That's it. Put that back on.
And then
Carry on.
where's the camera?
Camera's here. I think you could probably start pouring it from the main unit now. That's coming up though, isn't it? Is it? It's rising with you, I think.
Can't be. No.
I'll pour it all over the rest.
No, it's not rising.
Okay.
Oh, it might have done then.
It is rising up. So if
Yeah.
I put the camera back here.
What you don't do?
Let's put this down a bit.
Yeah, just don't put it down so it touches the bottom.
No, it's not. Let's bring it back up a bit because you're right, it's sort of I can put my fingers through all of it and it's fine, it's not down to the bottom.
Yeah, well, deep is not going to be a problem to you, is it?
No, depth isn't a problem. So we wanted to make sure that what would be the bottom would be flat. I just came up with the idea of using this because this has got a rubber edge on it, and it worked very well actually. And you'll see later on that when it's gone off, all I did was actually scrape it flat with a pottery tool, a trimming tool, and it worked really well. I go over here lightly with the heat gun because I'm sure if any of you've watched any acrylic work or anything like that, any bubbles or whatever, and it seemed to help flatten it out, but I don't know if it worked or did anything. It was really just to see if I could get the plaster to flatten, but I don't know if it made any difference. Okay, so this has been about 3 hours. Apparently, I've been reading on this, if you add warm water to the water when you're mixing it, you get more time to work it, but it actually says 6 minutes. 6 minutes in the thing, but this has been 3 hours now. So I'm just going to take the side off and see what we have. Yep, that's just sprung off there. So that's actually sprung off. I'll just do this up. I don't need to actually take that off because it's... what it just said on the thing I just read about cutting the corners with a knife so you don't have these sharp corners while it's still soft. And actually the best way to tell this is still, when it was working, it was hot because it's a chemical reaction, and that chemical reaction now is gone, and that is actually cold, but you can tell that it's still a bit pliable. So let me get something that we can use to just take these edges off of with. Yeah, so I didn't really want to leave it any more than this. I followed the format that I followed there. Part of it was Simon Leach, and Simon Leach said in the video that I just watched, make sure you bevel the edges because you do not want to hurt your hand. This is going to be upside down, remember, the glass side is the side up. It looks like we could already turn it over. Pretty good, isn't it? And the plaster is still, you can feel that it's still soft enough to work at the moment. This plaster, this is the pottery plaster. It said if you're going to put your hand in it and do a hand mould, it will go off in a minute. I think that might be worth a go, don't you? So I've gone for 2.5 inches deep, 14 by 20. I think, I know that I shall speak through the video because I haven't spoken through the video. We were having windows taken out today, hence how we have this window. But the interesting thing is I just push this and it's already loose off of the glass, so that is a a really interesting tip. Right, let me turn that off and I'll go and grab the husband to see what the plan is. I realise the only way that I'm going to get these edges off of here, cannot be turned, it cannot be lifted because it will just break. So I'm just going to pull that off the edge, like that. And do that. There you go. Just wait for it to go off till tomorrow now. Or go hard. I don't think it'll. I suppose what you've got to do is just wait for it to dry and lose all its moisture now. So there we go. Okay, so here's a recap on how I mix the plaster. This is following another video that's online and it worked well for me. So it's 14 by 20 by 2.5 inches, which all times together is 700 cubic inches. I then divided that by 880. That gives me a weight in quarts of water. Now this is an Americanism, I presume. We don't use quarts in the UK, but I then have converted a quart into a litre so that I can work that way. It meant I had to use 8.28 litres of water. And then going back to the original thing was this 700 divided by 80 actually gives you the amount of pounds in plaster. So 700 divided by 80 was 8.75 pounds of plaster. And to get the actual amount of pounds in plaster, you can see that I've done the 8.75 times 3. That gives me the pounds in plaster. So there we go. The 700 by 80 is 8.75 quarts, made that into litres. That's the liquid base. But the 8.75 is times by 3 to give me the pounds of plaster. And in that case, it's 26.25 pounds of plaster. So just to show at an end, the plaster, it is up now. It is up. I've got my recycling clay here. I do a big bucket. And I've turned it over once actually to see how it's working. And it sort of gives you can see the finish underneath is smooth. I've got the smooth side up. This underneath is now soft. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope this helps all these home potters work out whether they want to make themselves a plaster slab. Cheers.